right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Hal.
And I'm Melanie.
And we want to welcome you to another episode of Making Biblical Family Life Practical. It's been a while.
It's been a long while because we've had a really rough winter. We've had some major health issues with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been, and our extended family as well, it's been a very stressful. Let's just say I spent a lot of time on the rare disease website.
That's no fun.
That is no fun. Yeah, but we're back.
We're back.
And what we want to talk about is something that we've been talking about a lot as a family and in our churches and with our friends. And that is, what about online church?
Well, you know what? That is a controversy, and I think it's one of the,
Well, okay.
It's not a new thing.
It's not a new thing,
It's
but
not new.
When COVID happened last spring, when we started the 2 weeks to flatten the curve,
right?
Everybody said, well, if we can't meet, let's meet online. And, it was fantastic that was available. That
is one of the unexpected results of the pandemic, because I think it really prompted a lot of churches and small churches like the one we go to take the steps necessary to have an online presence, to have their services online in a way that, when we were kids, there was always one or two churches in the market that had a television ministry
or radio ministry
or on radio. And so the idea that you have worship services being broadcast is not new, and I don't think the controversy is new.
No.
Because I remember growing up, people talking about, there's all these folks who just sit at home. They never go into a church. They say, well, I go to church on TV. And, and so the question, the criticism, the concerns are nothing new. They're just amplified right now.
Well, it's a lot bigger because a lot more people, a lot more churches now have services online.
Right.
And a lot more people are taking advantage of them. And so let's just talk about it for a minute because, there are fantastic things about church being available online. It is great for shut-ins, people with serious health problems. This winter we had to miss a lot of church. We had a lot of seriously ill people that could not go. And I loved being able to log in and to be there in real time with our church.
And that is one of the big differences between the old televised sermons versus the online presences, because now it actually can be interactive.
Yes.
You actually can interact, depending on how it's managed. Like in our church, and we've got a very small church, and it's nothing complex. It's not, really Hollywood or anything else, but there's somebody who is monitoring the chat window. And so if you've got a question, if you have a prayer request or whatever, it's not like being there, but at the same time, you're not an isolated, you're not out in the vacuum either.
You're not just watching. And see, that's kind of the critical thing here, that church is not something you watch, it's something you're a part of.
Well, let's go back to what do the scriptures say? Well, the verse that everybody goes to is in Hebrews chapter 10, in verse 25, where it says that we should not be forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some.
So this is not a new problem.
Not a new problem. As is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and do so much the more as you see the day approaching. And that's, if you think through the... What now?
Time for me to look something up.
Yeah. If you think through the New Testament, the church is always pictured as a gathering.
Yeah.
And they gathered in Solomon's portico in the temple, or they gathered in the homes of different people. There were churches that met in a designated home. But it was never like everybody's sitting at home waiting for the courier to come with the scroll that has the handwritten sermon that's going to be passed around from house to house. I mean, it's always in the sense of, this is a gathering. We're coming together from house to house. We're breaking bread together. We're doing things.
That's what I was looking up. Okay.
Acts
chapter 2, where it talks about when the church really came together.
Right.
And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread and in prayers. And so we see that yes, listening to the doctrine and listening to the preaching is a major part of it,
That's a central
but it's
part.
not all of it.
No, it is not.
No, because it's also
Mm-hmm.
about fellowship and in breaking bread together and praying together.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that is a concern for a lot of church leaders and believers right now, is there is a significant population who now says, oh, just log in. I'll just watch it on Facebook. I'll just watch the stream, and they're not engaging in the life of the church.
I think that it's one of these things, like there's so many different examples you can pull together, where the thing itself is not a problem. It's the way that it's used and the heart attitude in the use of it. And so to say, like in our situation where we had sickness in the house and we didn't want to share that with the family, or we didn't want to be exposed to anything else while our immune system was depressed, being able to join online was a way to stay involved with the fellowship and the worship.
But it has to be more than just watching it happen. We need to be sharing our heart, our life, our prayer needs with our brothers and sisters in Christ. We need to be interacting with them and learning what's going on in their lives so that we can pray for them. We need to be interacting with our church.
Yeah. And that's something which some churches are really good with it, and some churches are really poor with it. We've been in
both.
We've been in both, and I know the kind that I grew up in, and I know the kinds that we've sought out as adults, but
well, our church now is very good about staying in touch by email and by message and text message, that people are checking on each other, they're interacting with each other. But we've been to churches where the only interaction you had was the 15 minutes as everybody walked to their car after the service.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right either.
Well, that's the kind of church I grew up in. It was just everybody, you shake hands with the pastor on the way out the door, and then you get in your car and you go home. And you may or may not see anybody from the church for the rest of the week until next Sunday.
But that doesn't really fit what it's saying in Acts 2 either. There's supposed to be interaction and fellowship. And we need to strive for that, even when we can't meet together for some reason due to illness or providential hindrance. We need to be trying to be more than just consuming church. We need to be interacting with it.
Yeah, we should not just be an audience. We should be part.
We should be a part of a body of believers.
That's absolutely correct. So
now,
I would say definitely
different churches have handled this different ways. So one of our kids is kind of frustrated with his church because they're still masking all the time. They're not regularly meeting for fellowship much, and many people are attending online, and he's frustrated because he feels like the church has lost a lot of its interactive life.
Well, that's just the fellowship has just dropped off precipitously through that. And but other one of our other adult children said
we
that
have
their
6
church
adult kids, so
we've got and they don't all live with us, and so they've got their own church communities in the town where they live. And one of them said that the way that they've managed it in his church is that it's not just a website, it's not just a Facebook group. You have to go get a link from one of the elders or the technical crew or whatever.
Yeah.
So
if you can't come, you text somebody and they send you the link.
So in other words, you kind of have to say, hey, I need some help with this, and go out and be transparent like that. And it's harder to just lay back and say, I want to sleep in today. I'll just watch it with one eye open, and and that's a problem. That is a problem when it's piped into our homes by whatever means, that it's easy for us to slip in our own diligence, not to focus, to say, oh, I don't feel like getting up and getting dressed today or whatever. And that, I think, goes against the pattern that we see in the New Testament. Now, when Paul says, or the writer to the Hebrews says not to forsake assembling together, I don't think he's saying you can never be traveling, You can never
Right.
be on military duty. You can never be sick at home. I mean,
Right.
there are reasons that you may not be there that are not a matter of your own spiritual decline.
But it needs to be not you're always absent,
Right.
Well, one of our other son's churches,
Hmm.
they are broadcasting the service on Facebook, and he says it's been a good outreach that they have gained new members from people who see it and watch it and say, this church has got something going on. I want to be there.
And that's something that I think maybe some of us who are, can we say we're in the older generation yet? Because we got adult
Sure.
kids, I guess. Some of
Okay.
us who grew up prior to the internet explosion, um, I think that the younger generation is not as comfortable walking into a social situation cold. You know,
And far more so now.
right.
Because you don't really know what the rules are. I feel that some. I don't know when I walk in some place whether this can be a place where everybody's going to require a mask or whether
Hmm.
it's going to be a place where nobody's going to wear a mask. You know,
Well, I mean, we've found this with like homeschool support groups. When we started
yeah.
homeschooling, that was where you went to find information and to get encouragement and to ask questions. You found a group, typically a note card on the bulletin board at the library. And so you just said, well, I'm just going to walk into this stranger's house because they've invited me in.
Oh, now
And,
people would freak out
and
about
people
that.
don't do that. The younger parents are not as comfortable doing that anymore. They want to see who you are online, on social media, and kind of see a little bit, am I comfortable with these people? What do these people stand for? What am I getting into? And unfortunately that bleeds over into our church life too. And
It
so I
does.
think I think there is a point to say, you know what? Even if none of our congregation is joining the online services, having them out there online where other people can access them is a benefit to the church's outreach, as you say.
Well, I remember when COVID hit, a friend of a friend who's a pastor in Italy
Hmm.
said that he was having way more downloads of his church service than had people who had ever darkened the door of his church.
Mm.
But there's a pretty high social cost in Italy to attending a Protestant church. And that was a way for people to kind of get their toes in the door,
Sort of, I'm curious what these people are about, and
Yeah, and maybe
without,
hear the gospel.
yeah,
But
okay.
and so the answer may not be the same for every congregation. I don't think it is.
Hmm.
For our sons who are at college, for their congregation, where likelihood is people are going to want to lay in their beds, then having somebody have to contact an elder or a deacon to get the link to the service is probably wise.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, in the small town of South Carolina where the son is that whose
Hmm.
church is on Facebook,
Yeah.
that's probably just fine because there's a strong ethos in that area that you get up, you get dressed, you go to church.
Well, and I think also this, okay, this is another one of those unexpected benefits. One
Oh,
of our episodes earlier, we talked about dealing with stress or with stressful situations, and part of that was that exercise of saying, well, what can we say about this
yeah.
situation that might actually be encouraging? And so, well, what are 5 good things about the pandemic? Well, one of them I think might actually be that people are more sensitive to the fact that if I'm sick and I go to church, I might pass that along to people in the congregation who can't deal with it like
Oh,
I
and I
can.
cannot tell you how thankful I am for that because I remember,
We've always been the ones that got sick.
yeah.
We've always
Well,
been
I
the ones that
remember
got,
somebody coming up
yeah,
and giving me a great big hug,
yeah,
a long, lingering hug, and then
yes,
saying, "Well, I got to run. All my kids are at home throwing up."
yay, thank you.
I wanted to weep
Yeah,
because I am so susceptible to stomach flu. When I get it bad for a long time.
right.
And but I do think that's a good thing that people have come to recognize that they need to stay home when they're sick. And
And when
now
you
they
got
can join
now,
in online.
right, and now that makes it a little more easy to say, look, you are still participating, you are still involved in the teaching ministry, and to whatever extent you can, the fellowship or the prayer ministry as well. And so, I think that's an unexpected positive that's come out of the situation.
Absolutely.
Um,
And I think just like anything else, it needs to be handled with moderation and with wisdom, that people need to decide, am I truly providentially hindered, or am I just lazy?
Because we've been in churches that were really, really strict about, unless you are providentially hindered, that was what they always said,
Yeah.
then you need to be here for the stated meetings of the church. Well, okay, I agree with that, except that some people hear that and they think, if I am not hooked
drag my bloody and bruised body into church, I should be there.
If I'm not like unconscious in the hospital, if I haven't been thrown into jail, then I'm not hindered.
Let's use some wisdom, folks.
No,
okay.
let's use some wisdom.
Do not come to church if people in your house are throwing up.
No, and so that this does give you a little bit more opportunity to show that kind of consideration. Yeah, let's show love to one another and not share our illnesses.
Yes. And I think it's a real encouragement to large families, because y'all, when our kids were home, if somebody got sick, it would go through everybody step by step, and we might have somebody in the house sick for 2 or 3 weeks. And so I think this is great that now those large families can join in online while the sickness works their way through the kids, and not be missing a month of church. Anyway,
right.
Online church has some real pluses, but you got to be cautious. It cannot substitute for face-to-face.
No, and so we do
meetings of the body.
So we really do encourage everybody, be in attendance. Find a church. I mean, I know that's a hard thing to do when you're changing towns or moving from college to home or home to college or whatever. But find a church to be involved with.
It's worth it.
And make friends and be involved in the fellowship of the church. And if you need to use the online service for whatever providential reason, that's the blessing that is meant to be. And so, so we want to encourage you to recognize it is a good thing. It is not an evil thing or a wonderful thing. Either way, it's a thing, and the way that we use it is the most important part of it.
That's right.
Okay. Well, look, hey, hand me my phone over there, because I was going to share. We are about to get back on the road, and we will be going to some conferences very soon.
Yes.
And so let me pull that up there.
Okay, we'll be at Patch in Peoria.
Yes.
In about 3 weeks.
Okay. And
that's mid-March.
That is coming up very quickly.
Yes. And then at the end of the month, we'll be at Teach 'em Diligently Red Rock at the end of March.
Red Rock, no.
Red Rock, Texas.
Round
Rock, Texas.
Round Rock, Texas.
Round Rock, Texas.
Which is near Austin.
Yes.
Okay. And so here, let me pull up the rest of these events here so we can say.
We're going to be at FPA Florida, Orlando, Florida this summer.
Yeah, and that's at the end of May. Here, let me get the dates up here.
Okay.
I got too many windows open on my phone.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, Patch, March 18th to 19th in Peoria. March 31st to April 2nd in Round Rock, Texas for Teach 'em Diligently.
And
then we're going to be online and in April in Quebec.
Yes. Then we're going to have Teach 'em Diligently in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and that's going to be in the first weekend in May.
FPA at Florida and Orlando, and HAV in Richmond, and then in early June, and then in mid-June, Ocean Network in Oregon.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll add a few more things in there, but that's the schedule right now. And you can find out more if you go to our website at raisingrealmen.com. You can also find our store there with all of our books and resources available.
Yes, our subscription box is at craftsmancrate.com. And if you want us to stop and speak at your church, like you can see, we're going to be driving all over this year. And we love to stop and speak along the way at support groups and churches. Go to helenmelanie.com and you'll find out about our speaking.
And if you'd like to comment or suggest a topic or give us any sort of feedback on this, you can call our listener response line. That's at 919-295-0321. Okay? So, look, we do appreciate you joining us. Until next time, I'm Hal.
And I'm Melanie.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye, y'all.